everyone, and welcome to another episode of Signals from the Deep, the official podcast of your Seattle Kraken. At the time that you are receiving our transmission, of course, it is the Olympic break, meaning that there are no players around. There is no hockey around. There is no hockey for JT and I to discuss. So we thought, what would be a better episode than to talk about what we do with our colleagues on the Kraken Hockey Network. So we've been looking forward to this one for a while.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for the fans to kind of see what goes into a broadcast. It's a lot, and no better people than these two to be able to describe that and talk about it.
Yeah, so joining us today, we have our broadcast director, the one and only Patrick Brown.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Hello.
It's very exciting to see you actually do that intro because I've heard it a million times. And so I sort of pictured in my mind what it might look like, and now I've seen it in real life, so it's great.
Broadcast director not watching the video version, I see.
It's in my car.
Okay, yep. Likely story. Well, and also joining us, we have our vice president of broadcasting as well as our game broadcast producer, Ryan Schaber.
Hello. I feel like I finally have arrived. I've got the invite to come on Signals of the Deep.
Now, what folks might not realize is that both Pat and Ryan have actually been very helpful in us even having this podcast and trying to get it on video, even though apparently Pat is not even watching the video version. It's fine. And just having like us elevating this as a platform, because what is a podcast if not a version of a broadcast, right? So today we wanted to talk about all things kind of broadcast, but I thought it would be fitting to start with the launch of the Kraken Hockey Network, bringing an entire team's broadcast completely in-house as a team operation. And it took a lot of people to do it, but you two really led the charge there. So I thought maybe we would just kind of start on when did that process start for you guys, and how did you tackle this from the beginning? What were the first things? What was at the top of the never-ending list?
I guess I'll start there. I think it was at the end of the 23-24 season. And yeah, there was an announcement right at the end of the season that they were going to break away from Root Sports and start their own broadcast network. And that all made sense on paper, but then I don't know that anybody actually thought, like, how does that happen? So that's where Pat and I came into the picture. And we previously, the first 3 seasons, were at Root Sports producing and directing the games there. So we had intimate knowledge of the team and who's involved and all that kind of stuff, and you guys, obviously. So there was a good starting place there. But I think I started a week before Pat did.
Yeah.
And in that week, I just sat there at my desk sweating, trying to figure out, like, making a list of all the things that needed to happen. And then Pat came out a week later, and I was like, so glad you're here. Here's my list. And he's like, that's really cute. There's like 100 more things. So we're like, okay. So then we just kind of almost put things into boxes and just kind of checked things off. And it made us feel like we were accomplishing things, but also we, in fact, were. There's a lot of things that went into it, but it was kind of just wrapping our heads around the vision that Todd and the ownership group of the Kraken had for this. And it was a daunting project for sure.
I mean, there were certain things that, like, that first week we had to get started. Otherwise, it was not going to be ready for the first broadcast. Like, it literally would not have happened. And so, when they say hit the ground running, I think, both of us felt a lot of real urgency to get that stuff done. But starting with that list and going, we got to do this today. Here's some stuff we can start in a week. Here's some stuff we can start in a month. And here's some stuff that don't really need to worry about until a couple weeks before the season. It really was, we just kind of laid out a roadmap, and thank goodness there's some incredibly talented people in this building that we hadn't really met before, and were able to really contribute some huge stuff from the visuals and music and, just the real look and feel and how it was going to all look and come together. So that was great.
Yeah, and I think the very comforting thing was, you have to have a production truck, you have to have a crew, and you have to have talent to put a game on television. And we were comfortable with all 3 of those things. And like having a built-in talent like we have already in place was outstanding, and that made us feel pretty good already. Like, if we can just get a picture on the air, we have great talent to take it beyond that. But so that was a good starting place to at least start. But yeah.
So what was the timeline that you guys were working with? You alluded there was not a lot of time, but what was the timeline and what were the deadlines like?
We got after it starting the first part of May, like first week of May, and preseason was September 17th or 16th, something like that. So
that's crazy. launching an entirely brand new, like, what went into like making sure you had like transmission and even things like that people might not think about?
Well, again, having been at Root before, we had the relationships with our truck vendor. We had the relationships with our crew. We knew we wanted both of those things back, so those were kind of easy conversations to have. Transmission, we kind of, we again had a relationship with who we used before, and it made sense because for a lot of reasons, and so we kind of went back to them and renegotiated a deal with us, and so those kind of things were some of the easier boxes to check in a lot of ways. The harder things were, we know we can get on the air. We know we have great people telling the stories and sharing the pictures, but like, what is this broadcast going to look like? What's it going to sound like? What's it going to feel like? And that was, I think, a lot of pressure because we wanted it to look authentically Kraken, but also make it look professional and great. And there's a lot that went into that. So we really had to set out and figure out what is this thing going to look and feel like. And that's kind of where the bulk of our time was spent. I think Pat was instrumental in making sure not only did we have that vision, but we were keeping the drumbeat moving, and we didn't ever take a week off because we couldn't afford to do that. So,
and we didn't just go with every single vendor we had ever used before. I mean, there were a couple of folks that we met along the way who ended up being really big contributors and very helpful in the process, and who have been great partners with us too. So it was a little bit of where can we find maybe where things might have felt a little bit weaker in the past that we can improve things, and then the real strong partners that we really enjoyed working with, let's just solidify that and keep it going.
What would have been an ideal timeline? You said, because you talk about May, like the stress, like what would have been like, all right, we're comfortable. Obviously, you still don't have that much time, but like to breathe, like just to put in perspective of like how fast this transition happened.
I think most rebrands are like 18 months.
Yeah, I was going to say about a year and a half would have been great. I mean, because the other part that we didn't even touch on is like we had to figure out the whole studio component and what not only like where is that studio, but what's it going to look like when we're there, and how are we going to staff it? Like those were big conversations. That was a whole nother design component. So I mean, yeah, I think 18 months would have been great. Instead, we had 6?
Yeah. At best.
Yeah. So one of the things you have touched on this a little bit, but one of the things I know fans are very invested in when it comes to look and feel that you guys have a lot of opinions about because we talk about it, the score bug. Okay. What went into the design of the score bug? What was your guys' thought process behind it? How much input did you have in what is shown and when and all of those things that make a good score bug a good score bug?
I'll start on this one. And I think we both agreed, and we have an unbelievable internal brand design team, and they were very eager to say, we don't want to farm any of this stuff out. We want to build and create all these graphics ourselves. And then we're like, do you have any idea how much work that is? But they said, yeah, that's awesome. Let's get to work. And luckily, Pat and I both agreed that like before we build any sort of graphics, full screen graphics, a lower third or whatever, we have to figure out what that score bug is going to look like, because that is up there the most. It has the most information. Anybody that's passing by, they're going to look at that first to see who's playing and what the score is and how much time is left. And so that thing is the most important graphic we have. So we decided we should start with that and build everything else from there. And then luckily, like one of our brand designers, Drew Hamlet, is kind of a score bug aficionado. So he actually proactively came to us and said, hey, I've always wanted to design one of these, and here's a bunch of ideas I had. And that first page, he had about maybe 10 ideas, and I think 8 of those ideas are already better than like 90% of the league, in my opinion. So we kind of came from a really good, I think, understanding of what we both wanted to achieve. And from there, we just kind of tweaked things and made things different. And there was a ton of conversations, like hours and hours of conversations behind it. But that was a really fun thing to start with and build out.
People are passionate about that, like you said, and not just fans, but internally. And there was a lot of conversation. And sometimes, some of the details that other people pick up on and decide that they want, that's important to them, you're like, that's the thing. Okay. Yeah, we can do that, but the specific components of the fact that we match the colors of the uniforms on the ice to the colors on the score bug and where the shots counter is and how all that stuff works.
Need to have the shots.
Everything's incredibly intentional. Yeah.
I think on top of that, the idea was to use that as a landing place for so many other graphics that come out of our broadcast, because we didn't want we don't want to take away the game from the viewers, meaning if you're watching at home, you don't want to cloud the screen and cover up the game with a bunch of graphics. So we kind of utilize that score bug as kind of like
pop out.
Yeah, all the pop outs, the lineups, the information that is in addition to what you're watching is kind of additive but not distracting at the same time. And I think that was a good landing place for all that stuff.
Can you take us through what a game day experience is for you? Because I don't think many people quite understand when the call times are, what you have to do, how long you're at the rink. It's a pretty interesting process.
Yeah, I think we both have our own processes as a producer and a director, which is they're very similar but very different in the way in who we're talking to throughout the day. But typically we're on site for a 7 o'clock game. We arrive at noon and start setting things up. There's an early crew call, and then most of the crew comes in at 1 o'clock, but there's an early crew call at noon. And, our days start before that even. We'll go to morning skate. I usually talk with yours truly and Edzo and John as well and Piper, and we talk about the game open and the pregame show. What are the storylines we're going to cover and talk about? And then not only that, how are we going to display them on the screen? Is it a graphic? Is it video? Is it a breakdown? So kind of formulating that before the crew arrives so that when they arrive, we can just get to work type of thing. But yeah, it's a long day for sure. And it's a lot of building. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of, setting our crew up to understand what they're about to walk into for the night, how our show operates, what our expectations are, how you like to see replays versus how Edzo likes to see replays, how Piper wants to tell her stories visually and those kind of things. And so I'm working with those kind of people, like the replay operators, the editors, the graphics folks, and I'm talking with those guys and then our pregame producer, Scott, to make sure we're all on the same page in dealing with that. And then I think Pat is really good, and he can speak more to this, but we get along very well, and we're good friends off of work, but we also have approach things totally differently, and I don't think you disagree with that. But he's very technical and very buttoned up and detail oriented, and I'm maybe less than at times. But I think we actually work really well together because of that, and so he handles a lot of that stuff on the days.
Yeah, and I think home versus road is a really interesting contrast because when we're on the road, there's a very good chance that 80% of our crew I've never met before and may never see again because they're freelancers and they're dropping in. And so part of our job, both of us, is to quickly assess, who these folks are and kind of try to get a sense for their skill level and how far we can make things go with them. But as the person in charge of a lot of the technical details, my day is filled with answering questions. Where does the handheld camera need to go throughout the day? Where is it going to start? When are we shooting Piper? Where is she going to go out on the bench for an interview, or are we going to shoot her from across the way because getting to the bench is a real hassle for that camera? Where do the hard cameras go? Our tight angle and our ISO angle and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that I've put into paperwork and sent out ahead of time. Nobody ever reads the paperwork.
Well, I mean, to that point, that's what I was referring to. Like, he spends hours before each game sending out, it's called the tech book, we call it. So it has literally every piece of information about our broadcast in like an 8-page front and back pamphlet.
Might need to get it to like 4, 8 starting to be a lot.
Well,
As a person,
there's
You're
a
not
page
gonna
for,
read it.
There's a page for everybody. The audio person looks at page 3. The replay people look at page 4. But most people, to your point, don't look at it.
As a person who has been the consumer of tech books in earlier parts of my life, I know that a lot of times they're wrong, but I'm also very proud of my tech books because they're always right. So,
That's your rundown.
Right. So people have to learn how we operate and recognize that, when it's the Kraken show, I can trust this information and I can just go out and do it. But there are other networks where the paperwork that comes out doesn't always
My favorite thing on the road is like when someone comes to ask Pat a question, the first thing he says, "Did you read the tech book?" And then they usually say no, and he's like, "Check the tech book and then come back."
My favorite thing on the road is when our crew members who I've never met before, a lot of times they try to argue with me. They're like, "That's not what the director wants." I'm like, I promise you, I know what Pat Brown wants us to do right now, and I promise you that is a working hallway shot. Just trust me on this. I know, it's always funny. But people always tell us on the road we have a really big show too because we have so many elements and so much talent, or so many talent rather, to kind of shift around and stuff.
I think even at home too, I've said this 100 times since we came on board, but like, we are very blessed to have a leadership and ownership group that wants to invest in this, and where you're seeing a lot of regions across the country for various reasons cutting things back from their broadcasts. We are adding cameras, we're adding personnel, we're adding microphones and those kind of opportunities, because it actually makes our show a lot bigger and then ultimately much better for the fans to watch at home too. So we're pretty blessed to be able to have that luxury.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you guys about is TV timeouts. How, during a live hockey game, is it coordinated between the players and the timeout coordinators and you guys and the truck that we are going to commercial break? Can you give us a behind-the-scenes look of
It's the hardest
what
league
that
in all of sport to figure out when we're going to break. But Ryan's the guy that has to fight through most of it.
Well, I mean, there's the rules on paper, but then there's
The textbook,
but there's
no,
a lot
I
of
see.
asterisks. But there's a lot of asterisks to that. So it's like, on paper, it's the first whistle after the under 14, under 10, and under 6 parts of each period. Except if it's an icing, you can't go. Except if the pass goes from the red line over the blue line to the goalie and he stops it. Except if someone gets pushed into the goal. If you get pushed into your own goal and the goal comes off, you don't go to break. But if it's the other team, then you do. It's like, so there's a timeout coordinator that's supposed to do all this stuff, and a lot of places have really good ones that have been doing it for a very long time, and we actually have really good ones here, but it was also brand new 5 years ago. But there's a person that works for NHL officiating that's called the timeout coordinator, and they sit in the penalty box with a headset, and they talk to both the home broadcast and the away broadcast, and they say, this is a break zone. Then the whistle happens, and then we all eagerly await, and they say, okay, we're going to go. And then we say, okay, everybody, we're going to go to break. And then we count down our master control to run the commercial break. But there's some times where those people don't get it right, or the on-ice officials get it wrong and tell the person the wrong thing or whatever. So sometimes we've actually gone to break and had to break away from that and come back to live action. It doesn't happen regularly. But
one of the
John's
things
always got a quip when that happens.
One of the things that's most interesting to me, though, from a player perspective, and JT and I have talked about this over the years, but I feel like in other sports, basketball specifically, even football, the players on the field know when those TV timeouts are coming and when they can take advantage of a moment to get a breath and take a break. But JT swears hockey players have no idea when TV timeouts are.
Honestly, I never thought about the TV timeout at any point during my career.
That's unbelievable to me.
They just happened. And I knew they would happen, but as far as the timing of them, obviously that there's the rules, like you said, the little asterisks that would happen when they wouldn't happen, but never sat there and was like, oh, TV timeout's coming up. This would be a good opportunity. Or you can get some different rest or send out a different line. Obviously, the coaches paid more attention to that stuff, right? If they know a TV timeout's coming out, maybe you throw your first line back out again because they're going to get a rest again soon. So the little things like that. But I was focused on, just watching the clock keep slowly go down.
The hardest part is that if you get under 30 seconds in the first or second period, you can't take a commercial break. So if it just doesn't happen, you have to take that break and move it to the end of the game and make it up at some point because it's paid inventory. And we've had a couple times where we've actually missed 2 breaks in the same period because we haven't got a whistle, or the whistles we've gotten haven't allowed us to take a break. And so it ends up being very...
So are there times we're rooting for Joey to just hold the puck? Yes, there are those times, yes.
Yes.
So what do you guys do during the TV timeouts?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. So they're 90 seconds long, which goes by really fast. But a lot of times we use those opportunities when we come back into the arena from the commercial break to get some inventory out of the way. So we have sponsors within the broadcast where we'll do a graphic, or we'll do a highlight package, or Piper will do a hit or a story on a player or a coach or some sort of other thing. And I use that 90 seconds to kind of coordinate what the content is coming back from the break. And then once that content has been decided, I will tell Pat and the rest of our crew, here's what we're going to do coming back. And
so it's a 90-second break, but it's 75 seconds of commercials. Yes. And sometimes the timeout coordinators in different buildings will be a little slow to start their clock, and some of them are relentless at when that clock starts, and you just have no time.
Yeah, so it's tough, but
Scott had mentioned there's floaters. Is there also floaters for commercials?
There are, yes, and that's if we have every once in a while there'll be like a broken piece of glass, so they have to fix it. And that, like, rather than just sit there and watch them fix it, we might take a floater break we can build them as long as we need them to be. And then also if we go to overtime, we'll take a floater break a lot of times between the end of the game and the start of overtime. We don't have to. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
All right. Just
I
to
like to
check
plan
off
all
a
that
box.
stuff too while we're sitting there. Hey, can you rewind this clip? I want to take a look at something. So then there's all these other things
Where's my
going on.
telestrator?
Trying to figure out what, and it may be a play that we're not even going to show on replay, but it's just a play that I wanted to go back and look at. So juggling, you guys, at least Schaber, you have to do a lot of juggling to what Edzo and I are in our talkback talking to you while all those breaks are going on. And when you say that they're 75 seconds and the 90, like, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like the moment we go to break, get 10 or 15 seconds to kind of recoup, figure out what a replay or what a look may look like, and then we're right back on.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to Piper and been like, okay, at the next TV timeout, I'm going to have you take it out of the break and tell your story about Joey. Well, between me telling her that and agreeing to that with Piper and the actual TV timeout, we've had 7 chances, an unbelievable save, and a penalty. And I'm like, well, now we have to come back and look at some of that stuff coming back too. So you have to be flexible with all of it.
Yeah.
I think one thing that our listeners may be interested in that JT just touched on is the talkback button.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to ask about. I was going to ask 2 things here, but we'll start with that. All of the behind-the-scenes communication that goes on between you guys, the truck, and us, can you offer just a little bit of a look into what that is?
Well, yeah. There we go. There's a secondary button, basically, where JT or John can hit a button, and when they hit that button, it turns their microphone off from being heard by the public, and it just turns onto a speaker in front of me and Ryan. And so if they need to see something, we can sort of have that communication offline, and Ryan or I can talk in their ear so they can hear us. So a lot of times, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but a lot of times JT or Edzo want to see a very specific section of a replay. That communication's happening offline while John's describing what's going on, and you would never know at home.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there is a monitor that JT and Edzo have in the booth that's called an ISO monitor that I can control what they see out of it. So most of the time it's just on the normal program broadcast, but if I want to show them a specific replay, or, I mean, Edzo does this a lot, like where he'll just be like, let me see that in my monitor. So I'll like put a replay source from a different camera in his monitor that he can just see up there, and then he could talk to me and say, hey, I want to draw that, freeze it there. I mean, we have the whole cadence down.
Yeah.
We can. I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about it sometimes, but he's like, what he sees, and you can appreciate this too. What he sees, and then the ability to see it, interpret it in his head, tell our replay operator, and then go on the air and say it
in 15 seconds, basically.
It's unbelievable. And then you're also like, how did you see that?
Yes,
like, it's crazy, but it's actually the amount of stuff I've learned from Talkback, listening to JT and Edzo in 5 years of this sport has been incredible, and it's a really fun tool, but it's also really cool because it's like that's really like the behind the scenes where they're like talking our replay operators like, go back, yeah, right there. I'm going to draw first, come up on a freeze, I'm going to clear it, then roll it, and then 5 seconds later we get a whistle and we do it, and it's just like, wow, it's really cool because it's a good education component, and it's a good just analytical moment for you guys who see the game at a level that none of us could ever dream to.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to have and to be able to do it a lot of times. One of the last games it was talking about the defenseman being very active and pinching, and I'm like, hey, great play there from Dunn stepping up. I want to keep an eye on this. Let's see if they keep doing it more. And like that's also how we can build something for going into the next period. We want to talk about that. We're going to start, all right, there's 15 minutes left. Let's see if we can find 3 or 4 more instances where, the defensemen are very active or jumping up into the play. Now, I do feel like a lot of the times though, I'm like, hey, Ryan, like this is what's happening. I really like this play. And then it never happens again. I'm like, okay, let's keep an eye out. Let's look for this one play that's really happening so we can build a package around it. But again, to be able to just talk to you guys back and forth about what we're thinking. And over the course of the 5 years, I think it speaks to you guys as well. Like you're starting to see exactly what we would want before we even get back and talk. Or like, hey, I'd like to look at that. You're like, I already got it done. So to be able to use the talk back, I mean, you have to have it.
Well, it was really fun to work with you out of the gate who had never done this before, and so we could kind of help shape you a little bit, but then as you got more comfortable you've started to shape how you want to see things from us, which I think is really cool. And then when Edzo came in, who's done it thousands of times, it was a conversation about like, how do you like to see stuff? Do you like to go, if there's a bunch of chances and then we finally get a stop, do you want to go in sequential order? Or do you want to go what just most recently happened backwards? And like, there's conversations like that, and you start to learn each other's cadence a little bit, just like Pat and I are inside the truck. It's a lot about nonverbal communication, and so there's a lot of that too, which is really cool. But the last thing I'll say about the talkback button is I think we have to find a way to have a talkback broadcast.
Oh my goodness, I don't know about that.
I think that's the most entertaining thing of the whole night.
After dark, that'd be a fun one.
I was gonna say, like, maybe when like John and Edzo retire someday, that's what they're doing. They have like the Manning cast, except for it's just like the talkback cast. And it's
that is right up there with getting a GoPro in the car when John and Edzo drive together. So that would be up there.
It's funny though, because it's like we talk so much about, chemistry, like for line mates and as a hockey team, right? But like all of those things are just as important in a different way, like for our team too, because everything moves so quickly. As fast as the hockey game moves, we have to move too, to be able to like read, react, and tell the story of it too.
I've never been a professional athlete or even an amateur athlete, honestly, but the teamwork that we experience every day with the television broadcast and herding 40 to 50 technicians into one goal to tell the story together is like the most awesome experience every day. It's what keeps us coming back for sure. Yeah,
one of the things that I would think you should hit on is like, it's none of this stuff just like happens, it appears. Like every game, whether Pat has worked with all of the camera operators before or none of them, he meets with them every game and has a camera meeting that says, okay, if you're camera 3 and your job is to ISO players, after a penalty, here's what you do. After a goal, here's what you do. I think that's a pretty fascinating thing, because otherwise it doesn't just happen. Like you tell them what to expect in certain situations.
It's true. And like we mentioned earlier, we have unbelievable resources on this broadcast, right? We've got like 15 cameras. And so if all 15 cameras were all pointed at the same thing all the time, we would have nothing. We would have one thing. And so part of my job is to be creative in making sure that all those 15 cameras have specific assignments, so that we have 15 different things to look at, and then we can select those as we go along, either off a replay or live. And that's the artistic part of the job that takes a long time to learn and get used to. And for me, starting in hockey when the Kraken started, I was new to the sport, and it took me a long time to get the rhythm down. But I feel like we do a pretty good job of covering the game now.
And you need all the colors to paint the picture.
Yeah,
I think a cool thing too is that I wasn't necessarily new to the sport, but I hadn't done it in a while. But both the stops before this for me and Pat were doing soccer, and there's a ton of similarities between covering soccer on TV and hockey on TV. Hockey's obviously faster in a smaller area, but there's a lot of similarities in how chances are created, buildups happen, defense is played, goalies positioning. Like there's a lot of similarities, and so I think there was a lot of takeaways from our previous lives and how to translate that into hockey.
One of the things that I have a couple more things that I still want to ask you guys about, but this is kind of getting at one of the things that I wanted to ask about a little bit, which is just like your guys' backgrounds, but also your guys' connection to this sport and watching this team grow and be such a big part of bringing this team and this sport to this city and this community. Like Pat, you're from the Pacific Northwest, like just like what the experience has been like for you from kind of an outside perspective to be able to have this opportunity and to bring this to this audience.
Yeah, for me, I'm very honest about not having necessarily been a hockey guy growing up. I grew up in the Portland area and have lived in Seattle for almost 25 years now. But and I remember going to some Winterhawks games growing up. But I don't think that my position necessarily needs to be a sport-specific expert. I do need to be a TV expert, and I think we do pretty well with that. But it has been so cool as a Pacific Northwest kid to watch this team establish itself and establish an identity and make a space for itself in the Seattle area, because it's something that obviously people wanted, and we were missing a professional winter sport for sure.
And as you guys well know, I hail from the great state of Minnesota. So
yep,
you do.
Yes, you do. Three of us at this table.
I don't know if Pat knew that we were from Minnesota or not. I'm not sure.
I'm sure Pat
never told him before.
Did you know?
I feel like maybe you mentioned it in passing once, but
as a person who didn't really like the cold that much, I chose to play basketball in the winters instead of hockey. So I didn't really play a lot of hockey, but I obviously had a ton of friends. A lot of family was really into it. And so I was around it a lot, and I always liked the sport. Not good at it, but I appreciated the sport a lot. And I think I also, more importantly, saw what it meant to people and how people like really latched on to how unique it is in a lot of levels. And so I think being able to do that now and kind of help build that and foster that in the Pacific Northwest has been really cool, because it's starting to latch on like I always knew it. I just thought everybody was like that, when I lived there. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about, I know you had experience in hockey though before too. How long had it been since you'd kind of worked in hockey?
A while, probably at least a decade. Yeah. I think I used to produce University of Wisconsin Badger hockey games, and then I left, and I think you came and started reporting on those, which is kind of funny. But no, that was a long time ago. It was probably 10 to 15 years of doing actual hockey. But my first thing out of college was working on television broadcast for the Minnesota Wild. So that was kind of the first thing, and then I kind of moved around. But yeah, it had been a while. So,
but to then get to like launch, for that to be your first stop, and then to get to like launch a team and then launch your own hockey network like with this team, like I just have to imagine
launching a team is it's a special thing that not everybody gets to do, and being there for the first time a team takes the ice and first time of all that stuff, it definitely is not lost on me that we were very privileged to have been here since the beginning.
I just want everybody to know that Ryan continually tells me to watch out for when he starts playing men's league. So even with all the background he just talked about, he's still waiting on that opportunity to check me in men's league. Just one time.
Wow.
I'm waiting for you to get older so you slow down. And then...
I was saying, that would also require you to go back to playing men's league occasionally.
Oh, if he's in the men's league, I'm playing.
Oh, okay.
100%.
Well, then, what division would you have to be in?
I don't know.
I don't know if that's
he's got to work his way up. I don't think I can play in any other. As soon as the season's
over, I'm joining the Learn How to Play, and just watch out.
JT, I want to make space for you to get in here if you have a question, but I got a couple more. So.
No, I just wanted to kind of go back to kind of the setup of the day, roll times, and thinking about like back-to-backs. Like, what are the most challenging situations for you guys when it comes to getting everything prepared, whether that's, like I said, on a back-to-back. We just had an early game as well. And even the fact that, the building sometimes has concerts in it, wherever we are on the road, how does that change what you guys have to do, and how much more stress does that add?
I mean, the great thing is that the way we build our show is that it is a one-day event. Like, we know that the truck might have stayed in the night before because it was being used by somebody else, or maybe not, but we can do it all in one day, and we're confident in that. That being said, playing a game in Minneapolis and then the next day playing a game in Dallas means that we're flying in the middle of the night and going to the hotel and just getting a few hours of sleep and getting up and going to the arena again. Those are challenging days, for sure. But it's nothing we can't do and nothing we haven't done. We started, what do we have, 4 back-to-backs after Christmas? That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you kind of get to the point of like, you don't really know what day it is anymore. It's just game day or not game day. And I think luckily we do get to travel with the team, and that makes it a world of difference. But you're still tired, and you're still, it's such a high intensity job where you're always on and you're up, and you have to be
locked in.
And so it does take a lot of energy, and so you're kind of zapped after a game anyways, and then you have to kind of get right back up to it. But I produced for Major League Baseball teams for many, many years, and that travels a lot, but this travel is a lot more exhausting, I always say, because you're never really in a city for longer than like 36 hours, it seems like. Whereas baseball, you can like get to the hotel, unpack your suitcase for a couple of days, pack it back up, go to the next stop for a couple of days. Like, this is just always on the go. And so you're wearing down a little bit physically and mentally with that part of it, let alone the job. So it's a balance you got to find.
For sure. We talked about that, I think, last episode quite a bit. We were talking about our own journeys with that. Okay, Pat, this relates to you a little bit, but Ryan, mostly for you. To quote the great Jaden Schwartz, he was talking about in the context of the equipment guys, they have to deal with a lot of high-end personalities and all of their many demands and requests and details. You guys also have to deal with a lot of high-end personalities in me, JT, Edzo, John, Allison, Ian, Brett, all of us. Sometimes the radio guys occasionally, what is it like to also have the dynamic of having to juggle all of us and manage us and all of our visions and things that we want to contribute to? I can see your face.
Pass.
Yeah.
Next question.
Breezers.
No, I think I've always looked at this as my role in this kind of job is to set the talent up to succeed. And so I also know that if they are not prepared or not getting what they need or what they want, they're the ones on live television, and it could be a disaster, and it's them being the mouthpiece for our whole organization. So I don't really look at it as demanding or needy or...
I was just teasing. Yeah.
Right. Or what did you say? High.
Yeah, Jaden said high-end personalities,
yes.
referring to him and his teammates.
But there's a lot of pressure on your guys' jobs. And if I'm not giving you guys enough space to be prepared, then I'm not doing my job. So that's how I look at it. Again, yeah, I've worked with so many different types of talent over the years. And truly, whether you get along awesome or you don't, it's kind of like a family because you're traveling and you're spending so much time together and you're going through this like high intensity event every single game together. So it's just kind of fun and part of the gig, I would say. And luckily, I don't think, so far with this team and this crew, I haven't had a problem ever dealing with any of that stuff, I guess. Certainly there's days where I'm having a bad day too, or whatever. So no, I think it's been fine. And I think my job, like I said, is to just prepare you guys to do your best effort on TV because that's the hard job,
I guess I also meant too in a positive way, like the things that JT and Edzo and John, the banter that you guys get to create and that you guys also get to feed into occasionally.
I will also say that John and Eddie are both, and JT and Piper, they're all one of one, so they're which makes it very fun. But I think the amount of times that, again, going back to that talk back button, that JT and I just are like laughing or talking to each other about something John and Eddie are talking about. It's very fun banter, and if you're going to do this 80 times a year, and you're going to have games where it's just not a great game for one reason or the other. You got to have fun too, and it's got to be entertaining. And I think that's ultimately what we're after is it's got to be an entertaining broadcast, both on the ice with the play, but also with the banter in the booth.
I feel like sometimes a lot of those conversations I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, what is that? Was that show in black and white? Or I have no idea. Like, what is going on? And then we can have our own separate side conversation.
Well, and I don't have a talk back button, so I'm always down outside the locker room. Like, I know exactly what they're talking about. And I'm just wanting to get in there.
Is there one moment that you've had that stands out about? I have a couple that I just every time I think about them, I still laugh. Like,
oh man, there's too many. Oh, I'm trying to think. There was one in Vegas. The confetti one is one that definitely, that moment on the broadcast when it was Calgary when the piece of confetti was flying, and that lasted for a very long time. The Breezers moments are always entertaining.
John Bonforzi.
Yes, John Bonforzi. There's so many. I feel like there's multiple every year, and we need to have a highlight reel of all of those come out at the end of the year and put it on.
Well, you made one.
Yeah, bloopers.
Not all of them, but
bloopers.
some.
But I want that. We need the best, the funniest, or anytime Edzo laughs and he kind of gets that little giggle and squeal in there like that.
Wheeze.
I can't help but to laugh as well. And then there's times where John just looks over at both of us and we're just laughing, and he's like, "All right, well, I guess this is all on me now." So,
but can you imagine a broadcast that wasn't having fun? That would be totally
not
enjoyable.
Again, it makes going to the rink every day and talking about the game and making sure that we exude the right energy. Obviously, there's times where we have the fun, and then we'll reel it back in at times as well. But again, it makes it incredibly more enjoyable that way.
And then when the game dictates it and you guys lock in, it's like the best crew in the business by far. And you turn it on and you're like, wow, again, you're seeing things that nobody else is seeing. You're pointing things out that really enhance the viewer's experience. So I think it's a really good balance, a lot of fun, and I get to be kind of I want to say the ringleader, I guess.
Yeah, no, you are.
I really think it's really important for somebody in my role to remember, nobody knows who I am, and that's fine. But my job is to make pictures that match with what you guys are talking about, so that it is all seamless and nobody at home even thinks about that. because nobody's going on, social media afterwards and complaining about the directing. But if, JT's replays don't work out or Piper stumbles because a camera guy is distracting her, like that's the sort of stuff that people notice. And so our job is to just get out of your way and try to support what you guys want to talk about.
That's an interesting point too, though, because I'd say like there's times, especially say a stop puck goes over the glass or the goaltender makes a save. There's no real replay to go on, and either Edzo or John makes a comment about that certain player, how fast the camera switches to that player on the ice or whether that player is on the bench. And we just are trying to talk about a moment or a play that happened before and that. So like how quickly that goes. And I start, when you start noticing those things, it's really a kudos to you and your crew on how you guys are able to get those just based on what we were talking about. We didn't go into the talkback and say, there are times where that will happen, but a lot of times it's just, hey, I'm going to go talk about Matty Beniers in this break, and Pat, you'll put the camera right to him, and I'm like, oh, perfect. And then I go right on, thanks for that. That was perfect. Excellent job. So, like, those little things really matter in a broadcast.
And that's the rapport we build over 5 years, too.
Yep.
And again, our home crew specifically, they all care so much, then they're all listening to you guys, too. And so as soon as you say Matty Beniers, 3 cameras swing over and go shoot Matty Beniers because they know eventually Pat's going to take that shot. So it's on the road, it's a little different because they're not really maybe paying as much attention, but our home crew cares so much and they work every game that they're dialed in just like you guys are to us.
I was going to go back really quick to a funny moment when we were talking about funny moments with the guys, and it's also a shout out to you guys. It was when John was telling the story about his fight with Stormy the pig. The Carol,
Yes.
I think it was, is that the mascot that you got in a fight with? That's the one, right?
It was a different mascot. But
Bailey.
Was it a different mascot?
Wasn't Bailey one
there
of them?
was
Or
a
I
different one in the minor leagues.
It was a minor
There's
league,
been
yeah.
several.
But you
Okay,
guys took
yeah,
a
totally
shot
get it
of the booth, like while like the game was happening. We were coming back from break. I don't know exactly
Yes.
what it was, or there was a whistle, but you guys got a shot of them in the booth, like not a booth shot, but from the ice of a
Yes.
shot or something. And John is acting out how he's punching this
Yes.
mascot.
Yeah.
That has to be one of the best entertainment moments and quick thinking on your guys' part to capture him acting this out. And did he even know is also my question.
I'll say I'm going to bring you guys on, and that means they're going to come on camera so they can at least know that they're going to be shown.
Yeah.
But
Like 1 in 10 times, I'll put JT on cam between the benches without him necessarily knowing it. But I'm never going to put you on if it's clear to me that you might be embarrassed or you might be out of position. So I'm going to be very careful about putting you on without you knowing it.
But I also love that booth shot because you could see all of the decorations that are
Yeah.
going on in the
Yes.
booth. Like there's like Christmas lights and tentacles hanging from
It is
our
by
booth
far
and
the best
everything.
booth in the league.
oh yeah, I
Most
think
character, most charm put into it. I mean,
Yes.
no one else has that.
You need to do an MTV Cribs of just the booth and kind of walk you through all the stuff in there.
And then you can come to my dark black hallway where I sit on a folding chair with Earl, my A2, the best. Yeah.
And then we could go to the truck.
True.
Which you guys are in, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're in
Love
there
to have you
all
back.
game?
Yeah.
yeah.
And for those that don't know, like the truck is really like the heartbeat of the broadcast, right? Like that's where the control room is and everything. And it really is just this big like, semi truck, right? That you fill.
Yeah, there's a joke in our world that is like if you're trying to find the TV trucks, you got to go find the dumpster, and then it's usually next to that.
We're right next to the dumpster in every arena in America.
But yeah, everything kind of comes back to the truck, and it's all put together there.
How many people are in the truck?
I was thinking about it. I think it's 21.
Inside,
Yeah, I
guess it
think
is.
it's around 20 in for our home show.
It's probably a
So
fire hazard, but it's it's
And architects never think about the fact that there are people sitting out in that loading dock during the entire game, and so the bathrooms in every arena are just way too far away.
I'll say one fun thing that happened this year. When I say fun, it was not the at third period of the game in early November against Edmonton. The building took a power dip because it was a windy night or something, and it was enough to set the breakers off on the truck. And so we're all sitting there getting ready for the third period, and it just went pitch black in there. And like I couldn't see him who's sitting right next to me.
I mean, I swear I heard a record scratch somewhere. It was the weirdest
It was
thing.
so weird, and I've never experienced that before in my life, and hopefully never will again. But that was wild. But then you're thinking about 21 people in this little semi trailer, like pitch black, and you're like, it's recipe for disaster. Yeah.
I don't know how you guys do it. I've been in the truck
No one
briefly, and Like I would lose all spatial awareness sitting in there and have no idea where I am, start to get a little woozy.
Well, that's why we hate the day games. It's not because we're getting up early. It's because when we walk out, it's still light out and we're just
disoriented. Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else, JT?
No, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to add.
Did we miss something big?
I'm sure we did miss something, but there's so much that goes into what you guys do on a day-to-day basis.
No, I mean, I think the thing about it is it's just really fun because it's the chemistry that you develop over years of doing it together is awesome, and you can start to just rely on each other and trust each other to get everybody's working towards the same goal. And I think it's really cool to all be kind of rowing that same direction, and it's just been a lot of fun to kind of grow that over the first 5 years of this organization, and hopefully 5 more years after this.
It's art, it's technology, it's
hockey.
Working with people, it's sport, it's all of it. It's much better than sitting in a cubicle 9 to 5.
And we're not landing planes.
Exactly.
We're putting sports.
We're
on
not
television,
opening up chests and replacing hearts. We're just
although
making TV.
Both Pat and JT do believe that they can land a plane in
sure
an
do.
emergency.
That is true.
They both do believe that. Ryan, you said no?
I'm jumping off the back.
Yeah,
I hope we never have to see that day, but you know what? I'll be there to tackle it if it happens.
The Kraken's plane is in good hands if should it ever come up with these two on board. Yeah. Drew, did you have any other questions or things that we didn't get to?
You guys covered a lot. I think that was really it. The truck to me was like always an unknown, and you were kind enough to show me in it one time, and like from there, like I do have plenty of questions, but it's a lot more technical stuff that probably we can talk offline. But
Well, put us down to come back for the 2030 Olympics, and
Yeah.
There we go.
we can pick things up.
Yeah. And my takeaways are I'll start working on an after-hours talkback show, a GoPro show in the car for the car ride home, and then probably a post-game bus to the airport show.
Oh yeah, those are good. Those are good.
I always know I'm in for it when John's like, Piper, come here. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, I got to go back to the studio. I'm like, hello.
Ryan, can we get those bloopers for the show?
We keep a steady file going all season. Yeah. So by the end of the year, we'll have something.
Well, I would like to highlight for all of you just a couple of behind the scenes looks and some of the things that we've talked about. So we will have a little highlight reel or a little video that Pat put together of a goal from a recent game. We're going to put that towards the end here. And then maybe should we throw in the blooper reel from last year?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we should. In case you haven't seen it. I know it was all over the internet and such, but I feel like we should just throw it in there anyway.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Another chance. Fort in.
35. Gold or silver was awesome for the reaction.
Ray
14,
take
14.
Ray
10. Red.
Take 10. Cat gets to it.
Ray 9. A first, real speed.
Take
9.
Push down to him. Push down to him. Push down to him. Left to go in
Ray
the
7.
third period.
Take 7.
17 seconds
A
apart.
real speed.
Have a
Stand by
3-1
replay.
lead.
A. Effect A.
Bulls kind of have the battle level
Gold is next.
to set up the Stevenson chance. They stay right with it. Puck goes towards that Stevenson goal, so he's getting checked on the play. Cole Savage not able to pick up the stick. Right there, skate to stick. He ends up sending that one home.
Silver's next.
Love the battle level. They're getting to the inside, off the post.
Go silver.
Is also
Fortuitous bounce for Cat, but again, it's that work ethic. It's getting to the inside, winning the battle, and you end up being rewarded for it.
Okay, Piper, thanks very much. Great to see everybody back here.
It is great to see you, Johnny, as well.
Why would you interrupt me like this?
That's Kraken Hockey, baby!
That's not what it sounds like. It's mockery. All right, here we go.
Here's a good invitation to Johnny. That's Kraken Hockey, baby!
This will be over soon.
Do you think you look like John Bon Jovi?
I'm not commenting on this.
I just thought maybe you might change your name. I'm going to come back next year and you're going to come out and say, I'm John Bon Forsey.
Well, it's time to bring on the desk for opinions. Ian, Allison, Brett, your thoughts.
You do like my jacket?
I do. I love it.
I like it too. It looks great.
Thank
You guys like
I think
Shabbat
you
here?
look very nice tonight.
Thank you very much.
And I think the crowd agrees, right? How good does Johnny look tonight?
Okay, JT, thanks very much.
Feels really nice too. I couldn't resist. That's a nice.
Just
haircut.
keep your distance.
$2?
Keep your distance.
Oh, God.
Okay?
All right, I'm going right now.
Let's go. It's Saturday night, and the fans were taunting me, so I just lowered the boom. That was it.
Wait. How did you didn't strike him?
I slugged the mascot. I did. It made the hockey news and everything. Yeah, it's true. I did.
With a forearm, or was it like
Yeah,
was it
kind
like,
of a
was
shot.
Was it like this?
I gave him a good shot. And then he went like this, and he hugged me, and, it was a big scene. Kraken Nation, he's out of here. It's up to you now. Make some noise.
Great storytelling. Great broadcasting, everyone. Thank you guys so much for your time and for coming in on a very precious off day when you otherwise would maybe not have had to do this. Your guys' insight is always so valuable, and I'm so grateful to work with both of you too, and to have been on this journey with you guys since the beginning. It's been really cool to watch you guys build this too, and to just be a small part of it. So
awesome. Well, thanks for having us.
And while we're talking a little bit about kind of editorial and some of the storylines that go into the broadcast, we're going to bring in Scott Malone, who was able to join us for just a brief part of this interview. So welcome in, Scott. Welcome to the show now, Scott Malone, our beloved pre-post intermission producer. Scott, thank you for joining us here today. I know we only have a little bit of your time here, so we want to keep it concentrated and get as much as we can out of this. Just wanted to start by talking to both Ryan and Scott. And Pat, if you have anything to add in here, please do.
I will.
But what goes into how we decide what goes on the Kraken Hockey Network when it comes to storylines every day, the kind of content that fills your show, both in pregame but also in intermissions?
So pregame for us, it usually starts, honestly, the day before. Usually myself and our analysts, Allison and Brett, are usually either at a practice and we're talking amongst ourselves, or, there's a text chat or an email, a thread going back and forth with various ideas of, hey, this stood out to me last game, or this has stood out to me the last 2 or 3 games or longer. And then usually once we start to think about, hey, here's 3 to 5 things we kind of like for some sort of possible tentpole ideas, we will then usually use those to then go into the room after practice and either ask a couple of the guys to try to flesh out some more, because it's one thing to look for something on video from a previous game or the previous few games, or to go through and look at some statistics to try to help build a case. But if we can marry all of that with, yes, and I talked to Jared McCann and he said X, Y, Z about the power play or something like that, that really helps bring all of those things together in a bit of a unified, more cohesive point, regardless of what that one specific point is. Or it could be totally different, and it could be a case of the video and the statistics say one thing, or they say different things than what the player or the coaches have to say, and then that can lead to a bit more of an interesting conversation. Mm-hmm. Or if we get something like Allison thinks one thing about how one team is playing or how one player has played, and Brett may think of the opposite, that can lead to an interesting conversation.
Or a yes and.
Or a yes and.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of back and forth between myself and the two of them, usually the day before and the morning of. But so that's usually how at least the pregame show goes. And then usually Ryan and I will touch base because we recognize that we're fortunate to have John and JT and Edzo, when he's here, start our show every single time. And we want to allow, if JT wants to make a point or Edzo wants to make a point about something in the pregame show, we want to say, okay, well, if they're going to talk about, Jared McCann almost having a hat trick at the start of the show, maybe we don't address that right off the hop, because then it might be a little repetitive or something like that. And in the grand scheme of things, there can be so much to talk about, and we have, 20 some minutes after the commercials that we don't want to just keep repeating the same things from one show into the next.
But it's so hard when the fourth line is so good. I mean,
it is.
I would say, in addition to that, I think what I produce and what Scott produces are kind of achieving fundamentally different things a little bit. Like Scott probably produces 90% of the show, probably 95% of the pregame show, and it's all about really getting somebody dialed in for the game, whether that's a story on a player that you've done, sound bites from the morning skate, trends, highlights, those kind of things. I think the portion at the start of the pregame show and then the game open before the puck drop, Those I look at as kind of like, give me like 3 reasons why I should watch this game, and that's kind of how we approach it. Occasionally we'll get more into the weeds with stuff that JT wants to point out, specifically with X's and O's, or Edzo too, but by and large it's a little bit more broad strokes and kind of getting people set for the overarching theme of the night, and then Scott's show kind of gets a little bit more into the weeds with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. What about what goes into like the graphics that you guys make too? I know that we have a great team that helps with those, but I always see people online wonder like who wrote that little thing, or like your storylines. JT always have like little catchy, funny things. I know that Scott, you're really good with your little puns and all those things. What goes into that part of the production?
So I would say, at least it's probably a bit of a team effort because, on the one hand, Ryan and I will each come up with, a various list of graphics that we definitely 100% plan to use and will use in either the pregame show or in the game open or during the game. And then we bring in some things that we call floaters in the biz, which means basically we may use this, we may not, but I would like to have it at the ready if it becomes timely during this game. And sometimes we can be very adamant that I want this to say exactly this, and I have a great pun to go with it. Other times, it might be a bit of a collaborative effort with our fantastic freelance staff behind the scenes who helps literally make the actual graphics from the information that we give them. And sometimes they can come up with something far better than I can.
Yeah, and I would say that, like, the proudest days of my job are when I get them to laugh at my little puns for the graphic title.
Okay, I need to know. We had, at the time of recording this, it was, I think, 2 games ago on the broadcast, we had, I think it was in the game open, where we had like 1 exclamation point after the first one, and then we had 2 exclamation points after the second one, and then 3. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
That
I was
actually
wondering what that was about.
That was actually our freelance staff decided to take the liberty to do that, and like. Yeah, we actually, Pat noticed it before I did.
Oh, really?
And he was like, was that intentional? And they were like, we were wondering if everybody's going to notice. So it's like those internal inside jokes that make us.
I would just point out, years of experience in that graphics team is like unmatched. And our main graphics operator, Jeremy, has done Daytona 500s. He's worked Super Bowls. He's worked World Series. He is literally a world-class graphics operator. We're very blessed to have him on our show.
Yeah, but
I can tell you for sure that I've only picked 1, I think 1, maybe 2 of the storylines have been my own ideas. The rest of them have not come this way.
The ideas are yours, but the titles are
the
not.
ideas I pick up, or majority of the time it's, my idea of what we're going to talk about or what's going to be the story, but I don't come up with the catchy phrase. I think it's been only once or twice that I've done it.
I knew that. It's okay.
I'm just letting everybody else know. How does the job, or how does the getting ready for the show differ when it's a home game versus a road game?
So for us at home, obviously we try to help out our friends who do the in-arena show that all the fans watch on the Twins, and usually that involves a hit from Piper that she records from outside the locker room, and then a hit from John, JT, and Edzo up in the booth. And then usually, because time is precious between when we record that stuff and then when we come on the air at 6:30 for a 7 o'clock game, Ryan understandably wants to try to show you and John and Edzo, hey, here's just a couple of the videos where you're going to see in the start of the game opener or the start of the pregame, and here's a graphic so that you can see it, but instead of finding out for the first time live on television what it says. So that eats up some time, and deservedly so. And then for us, with what time is left, we try to do as much of a full rehearsal of every single element of the pregame show possible. And sometimes we can breeze through it all in a quick 5 to 10 minutes. Other times takes a little longer for one reason or another, and it could be, I meant to tee you up like by referencing this stat about Matty Beniers having X many points this month is a new best of his career or something like that, and one of the analysts say, well, actually I was hoping to start by saying that and then going into how he is doing it. So there are some of those little nuances that we try to just iron out ahead of time, but again, in the arena, when we are trying to make sure you guys up in the booth have the time to see all of your things, before we come on television. That just eats up a little time. In the studio, there is still some, for the away games, we have a little bit more time, but we also are sensitive to know that we rope you guys in for various things throughout the pregame show, which then further limits some more rehearsal time for Ryan's show for the game open.
Yeah, and another big point there too is at home, the pregame, intermission, postgame, and the game broadcasts are all done by the same crew.
Mm-hmm.
So if we sit down at 6:30 for the pregame show, that same crew is working until we get off the air on the postgame show. When we're on the road, it's kind of broken up into the game production and then the pre-intermission, postgame production. So the studio has a little bit of a quote-unquote break while the game is going on to rehearse some things, look at some things, build some video. We're kind of all doing it all in real time, all the time in the truck at home. So it's a little bit more chaotic, and so we also have to be cognizant of like, hey, our crew is going to be sitting there for 3.5 hours. We should probably give them a 10-minute break before we go on the air so they can catch their breath, use the restroom, whatever they need to do do that, because they're going to be sitting there for the next 3 hours. So I think we have to be a little more cognizant of that at home.
Scott, one thing that I wanted to ask you about in particular too, because I see all of this work, but I don't think a lot of other people do, is how much you are keeping track of constantly throughout the year, and even like in July, like before we have a schedule and the day we get a schedule. What are some of the things that you do that go into all of the pre-production, the stats that you keep, the interviews of who, why, when, where, all of those things that you do that aren't even part of those like immediate game day things, but they help make that a little bit easier when they come up?
Okay, I'm going to say the biggest nerd thing in the world here.
I know. Here we
go.
I
love a spreadsheet.
Yes, you do.
Love a good spreadsheet. I have probably too many still open on my laptop right now. That's fine. You know, the updates.
Nobody has more tabs open on their laptop.
Well, I don't know if you've seen mine, but
we can compare and contrast later. But
oh my God, Piper.
In an effort to mine looks a little similar. I'm not going to lie.
That's my one window.
But in an effort to, before the season starts, when we do get the schedule and, you know, we have an idea generally of who at least is going to be in the mix to be on the team, one of the things that I do is I go through and I start to look at who reasonably can we expect to achieve any major milestones. Is somebody on pace hypothetically to play their 1,000th game this season? Okay, if so, when would that be? Then I make a note of when that would be in one of my spreadsheets, so that then for instance, when we get closer to media day and Piper and I start to think about what questions we're going to ask of which players during our sort of sit-down interview times, we can know, okay, if hypothetically speaking, a player is on pace to play their 1,000th game in November, we want to be able to have a feature story on that player locked, loaded, and ready to go for air that night, so that way we can really help shine a bigger focus and celebrate that player for reaching that very rare milestone. And so knowing ahead of time roughly who is within reach of major milestones like that can help, especially as we look at our whole schedule of 70, 80 games and try to sprinkle in feature stories throughout. We could run a feature story on anybody at any given time, but the former news producer in me usually likes to actually have a reason for running it on a specific game or on a specific date.
Agree.
So that's one element of it. In addition, Piper, we try to not always talk to the same player every single game for a television interview. Fortunately, you know, our hockey operations department of the coaching staff has agreed to let us talk to the assistant coaches in the second intermissions, which has been really awesome now for 2 seasons in a row, and it's been a great addition. But in an effort to be cognizant of who we're asking for when, I literally keep track of every single person that Piper talks to in every single pregame show, first intermission, second intermission, and postgame interview on the bench or outside the locker room.
And win or loss scenario.
Win or loss scenario. We generally, last season and the full season, nobody did more than 5.1% of all interviews. And as a result, we can then know, oh, hey, we may want to talk to Vince Dunn. Oh, well, we kind of talked to him each of the last 3 games because he was playing well. So maybe we shouldn't talk to him. Maybe we should talk to Adam Larson instead about Vince Dunn, so that way we're not burning somebody out by constantly asking them to do television, but also making sure fans can hear from a variety of different players instead of just the same 3 to 5 guys.
But we will, of course, always, like, if there is somebody that it's like,
yes,
we must hear from, like, if it's, bad loss, it's like, we got to hear from the captain. Like,
yes,
we always do that, too. But, yes, it's very helpful. And I always like to, like, have those numbers, too.
Yes.
To be like, you know what, Tolvey, you haven't come over to this backdrop in 6 games. So,
yes,
you know what? We got the data.
Yes.
Now, I'm just using Tolvey as an example.
Yes, Tolvey's great.
Yeah. But it's very... I think that is a really nice thing that you do that you don't have to do, that a lot of producers wouldn't do. And I appreciate all of that stuff. And you mentioned, the features. And I think because I am obviously the forward-facing person on the features, like, I get a lot of credit for them. And I always try to, like, pass it on to you and to our editors that work on it whenever we get things, because people don't realize how much you do to help with the features, too. Like, all the pictures to get all, like, them playing in their juniors teams back in the day, like, those are all emails, and they're so, especially if they're a player that's played for 6 different teams, 7 different teams, we need footage and highlights from previous teams, and every single one of those is like a request and a follow-up and another follow-up to every single one of those teams just to get those visual elements for just one feature. So you can imagine how many emails Scott has to send if we have a week where we have 3 features going. It's a lot of those things too that I feel like that is a good example of a lot of the things that you do that help keep us, like, afloat in all of the things that we produce, because it's a lot of that, like, not fun keeping track of things, Scott, that you are very, very good at, that is so vital to us. So anyways, that's not a question, but
yeah, it's a lot of busy work, but again, I think at the end of the day, everybody on every team at every level is happy usually to help each other out, because we all know we're trying to make the best content out there, and usually I'm not the first person to ask the Milwaukee Admirals about Freddie Gaudreau, for example. But an email or a phone call, again, the hockey community is great. It goes a long way, and so I always thank everybody, but I will make sure again, thank you again for all of you who have helped us with visuals for these features. It really does mean the most.
I know you're short on time here, but one more question. What would be the most challenging or difficult aspect of running the pre-post and intermission show that the fans wouldn't know about?
I mean, the most challenging part is probably what I like to call the seat of the pants post-game show, which usually is a game-winning goal is scored in the final 5 to 10 seconds of a game, or we go to overtime or a shootout, and, especially if it's a low-scoring game, it's not like you can break down 7 different goals if it's a 2-1 shootout win, for example. So you're trying to, on the fly, think of, well, if this person scores and the outcome is this, what am I going to start with first? And then what am I going to go to then? And then I'm trying to communicate the various contingency plans of, well, if it's a loss, how do we go about this? And then I'm trying to communicate that seamlessly both to our talent, Ian, Allison, and Brett, so they have a general idea of what is coming down the tracks for them, but then also to all of our behind-the-scenes crew, because if Jared McCann just scores a game winner in the final 5 seconds of a game, we probably want to talk about that goal, and we probably want to start it at a specific point, but I can't, while Ryan and Pat are working on showing the literal replays of it as it literally just happened on air, I need to work with our videotape room to say, okay, when you're done, please go back to this point and start it from here, and give them the time that they need to try to seamlessly build all of that so that when we are ready to go and it is our turn, we can go through things one step at a time while simultaneously trying to seamlessly get to Piper's interviews with the players, or whenever Lane's ready for his coach press conference. I try to go to that stuff the second that it begins, because again, our talent is amazing, but fans also want to hear from the players and the coach after a win or a loss. And usually we have to juggle in timing factors too. We have a certain number of commercials we have to get in. We have sponsors to get in. And so trying to make it as close to a seamless and well-organized but slightly chaotic process as possible. It's challenging at times, but it's what makes it fun.
I picture you like that meme of the little cartoon dog in the room that's on fire with like a cup of coffee, and he's like, "This is fine." That's how I picture you in those moments.
I picture more the meme of Beaker from the Muppets with his hair on fire. That's kind of more what it feels like.
That's more internal sometimes, but because
Scott is so like cool-headed.
I will say that
like,
to that point, though, I mean, one of the biggest things about whether it's producer or director in those roles is like everyone is looking to you to be the leader. And so if the leader is chaotic and crazy, then the show is going to be that way. If the leader is calm, collected, and straight to the point and like speaks with conviction, people will follow that. And I think Scott does a really good job of that in those moments where people have to look to him to be like, what are we doing here? And then he can tell everybody, here's what we're doing. And everyone's like, okay, got it. So it's cool. And then the last point on that too is that the point he referenced, like going back to what I said before about having a studio crew versus the home crew, it is more chaotic at home because, we're trying to document the game that's going to live on forever about the game-winning goal or the shootout winner or the great save Gruby made at the end of a game. We have to do that. Well, he's also trying to use those same people to prepare a post-game show, whereas if he's in a studio and we're at site, they're two different crews, right? So he can kind of work on his show independently, which is a lot easier in some ways than trying to use the same crew to do both jobs.
And to that point, still, a lot of times there is not a commercial break or anything between. It is usually just one seamless viewing experience from the end of the game to us. So it's not like we have, an extra 10 minutes or 5 minutes to usually kind of line things up. It's very much, hey, one step at a time. We'll get you through it. This is what's coming next. Here comes some video of this. Got a graphic on some history because of this. And this is also where I do have to give some credit to Ian, Allison, and Brett. They're fantastic to work with, and they are very comfortable now with whatever I throw at them, whether it be a true curveball or not. So that also, as a general team, makes things a lot easier when internally it might be the, Beaker or the dog that's in the room on fire. If I know, hey, I can throw anything at them, or if I need them to just converse amongst themselves for 30 seconds until Piper is ready to go to interview a player after a win, then I know I can ask them to do that, and then that can make the show better.
And what's funny is like, I know that this is happening, but when I'm doing my stuff, I'm like, where is this player? Okay, mic check, you guys got me. Like all that stuff is also happening, like separate from that is like, we also have you guys in the booth, JT and John in the booth, and trying to organize them and get from the booth to the post-game show to me on the bench and all of those things. And it's like, and we're all on various communication channels, like all happening at the same time too. So it is very chaotic, but at the same time, at least for me, like it's like, we're just worrying about like our one thing that we need to do there. JT, I would assume it's kind of similar for you.
I mean, it's like,
but not for you guys.
There's a lot of trust that has to go into like the talent just has to trust the producer where we're going, right? Like even like a replay, like you don't know what angle we're going to start with. You just have to trust that I picked a pretty good one to start.
No, it's good.
And every once in a while I'll be like, hey, it's the left side of your screen, so you can draw your attention because you're seeing it for the first time.
Correct.
When it comes onto the air. So it's similar in a post-game show where you're like, it's one thing at a time, and they just have to have a lot of trust in each other.
Yeah, and then sometimes Edzo's like, can we get a different angle? No.
He just says it.
He just says it. Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time and for your contributions to our show and all of the things that you do behind the scenes and on the scenes as well, even if people don't see you doing it. You're such a huge reason that we have a multi-Emmy award-winning show. So,
well, thank you, and thank you for having me. It's great to be part of this team, and like I said, glad to be here. Couldn't do it without this group and Ian, Allison, and Brett.
Shout out.
They're
not here.
They're
with us in spirit.
But they are.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Signals from the Deep with Piper Shaw and JT Brown. Give us an assist by rating your show on your listening app. You can watch the full video episodes on the Seattle Kraken's YouTube. Go Kraken!